Okay, folks, this is James White. This is Northwest Liberty News. Thanks so much for joining me here today on this 15th day of March, 2022. And it appears that there may be something wrong with the feed from Rumble. So if that's the case, I'll just take the video and upload it to Rumble after the broadcast here. And I don't know why. It's having problems. But there we go. Looks like it's up now. Excellent. Excellent. And I'm joined by David Dunn, who's sorry about that, folks. It's always important to get the feeds going here when the show starts. I am joined by David Dunn, who's been on the show before, back when I was running with EIV Radio here a couple years ago. Always delighted to have David and consider David a friend. He's been here in the studio a couple times for interviews, I think, and not with a new setup now. Now he's in Helena, and not really, but we appreciate David Dunn being here. He is a candidate for Montana House District 8, and you'll have to let me know, David, where House District 8 falls under. David Dunn, thanks so much for joining us here on Northwest Liberty News.
Yeah, thank you, James. Thanks for having me. House District 8 is just West Kalispell, kind of by the middle school, and kind of channels north-south there, almost up towards the hospital and down south of town a little. So I got all the walking lists ready, and I'm about to go knock some doors.
Yeah, that is a good point you made. That's a lost thing. I think people don't understand. Candidates don't realize how important that is to knock doors and just to meet the folks and walk up and just shake their hand and say, hey, I'm a real person, and you ask for their vote. How can that hurt? I think that people generally, David, if you looked at the numbers, people that do that type of thing and do the door knocking overall, I believe, are more successful than others. Have you found that as well?
Yeah, amen. When I first got elected in 2018, I did that, and it goes over well. Most of the time, people just really respond well to a genuine handshake, eye contact, and you don't really even need to talk about politics. You kind of just need to prove yourself in that moment that you're, like you said, a normal human being, and not some egotistical freak or someone disconnected from reality. And that kind of, I don't know, the Montana like ethos, I think, is just a firm handshake and eye contact, and just being yourself and genuine goes a lot really far away. So couldn't agree more. Yeah, and it's been fun. Sometimes people get really nasty with you, like a few times, and in hindsight, you can laugh about it later. It doesn't even really hurt that much.
Yeah, those type of things seem to cycle through pretty quickly. That's for sure. David, we're in a different time than I've ever seen before in my life. Here, with everything that's going on, we are. I don't even know how to describe it, except that we're seeing certain elements inside the government who I believe have been operating in a criminal fashion for a long time. We're starting to see some of that stuff be exposed. I think the general population is beginning to see, I guess to use the term, how things really work and how corrupt things really are. Let's give what I'd like to try to do usually, David, is start with the macro and move down to the micro. So let's give me your 30,000-foot view, if you would, of what do you think's going on here in America, first of all, overall in general in this country, and then we'll come down into, we'll drill down to Montana after that. So give us, if you can, just an overall view of, when I say that, David, I mean, you see the economy looks like it's going in the tank. Prices are going to the moon. Gas is going up 50 cents like every couple, like 2 days or 3 days. I've never seen anything like it. What's going on?
Wow, it's hard to summarize it all, but I'll try to start. So I wasn't in politics. I didn't get elected last session, but kind of from 2020 on, I'm a spiritual guy, so I saw kind of the devil dividing our culture around the vaccine and science and how we were supposed to react to this coronavirus, which was probably made in a lab. And I think in time we'll realize that the virus was not as bad as the gene therapy is, but I think that'll take time, and some of us already see that. But that also was a cover for an economic event which destroyed a lot of small business and really disenfranchised people who already had an established business, small business. And when government can arbitrarily say, hey, we're here to protect you, we're going to declare an emergency, and we're going to shut down stuff. That's a pretty un-American way to govern. And it really did a lot more destruction to our society and our economy than we realize now. And now we have a president who uses the words build back better, and you have parrots like neo-Marxists in DC who say build back better, this is our plan, like it's their plan. But Klaus Schwab was talking about that in the Great Reset, and they're just doing what they're told and repeating what they're told. And that doesn't really include a prosperous America in the future. We're going to have food problems. We're going to have worse gasoline problems, and it's going to get things are going to keep ratcheting up. I don't see things getting more simple from here on out. So we need people who are spiritually ready for hard times, because it's already getting hard. We're in the worst inflation since Carter, and CPI was measured differently during Carter, so it's actually worse than Carter, and it's only getting worse. So I on the macro, I see build back better, which means they're going to try to destroy our gasoline society, our gasoline-based society, and we're going to have famine because half of the fertilizer that comes out of Russia is off, and they feed half of the world over there in wheat between Russia and Ukraine. So that's going to facilitate more of this Great Reset agenda, this Agenda 2030 that super oligarchs like Bill Gates and people on that level who have so much money that they think they get to design the world around their false ideology, which is spiritually wicked when you get down to it. But there's a lot more PC words for it when they describe it.
Well, indeed. And David, you're a man of the earth. You're a man of the soil. What to put it one way, have you seen from
dust to dust?
Indeed. Have you seen we've heard reports of people having a hard time getting tractor parts, certain things that they could have got before would have taken weeks, now take months, or, sometimes longer. The buzz, if and maybe based upon your personal experience or the people that you work with, have you heard those similar things? Like there is a shortage and there's a delay in getting things, or maybe some stuff just, I've heard, believe it or not, sat phones. I forget where I heard.
Yeah, they got sold out. Mike Adams was talking about that.
That's what it was, and he said they're going to be sold out until what, like September or October or something.
Yeah, the inside baseball was Ukraine was paying $10,000 for one of those. Like they have so much money, they just need it on the spot right away.
Wow, is that right, huh?
Yeah, or it wasn't like a sat phone, but it was a type of sat phone that was older that they're still paying $10,000 a piece for, because it's pretty important in a war zone to communicate, of course. But yeah, like what you're describing is true, and I think we all see it. Every aspect and realm of our economy on a local and larger level is under the squeeze. Plus, everyone who's still working is not getting rewarded for working through the pandemic or being short-staffed. They just get worked harder, and sometimes they get OT, sometimes they don't. So I see people who work for a living are more stressed out, and their pay is probably not keeping up with inflation, especially when this gas really stays and gets worse, this gas price. And I think everyone can see it with their own eyes that, yes, there's a complete breakdown in our world economy's supply line. And that's kind of a deliberate destruction by a super elite, the globalists, as Trump would call them, or a lot of other people have described before him. But he had some good speeches on globalists at the UN, so he was the last president to, well, you know what I mean. He was the last guy to describe that on such a bully pulpit that he did have.
Yeah, it's I think that, regardless if you love Trump or hate him, he certainly, he neutralized or he at least started the process. And I think that when the momentum got going, there was no stopping it. He started the process of neutralizing, I think, one of the greatest enemies of the people, and that's the mainstream press. And of course, David, there's lies by commission and lies by omission. And, they're guilty of both, but I think the ones that may be the most harmful are the lies of omission, where they just didn't tell, like, for example, ivermectin. They just didn't report. They didn't report it. They didn't report.
It's a horse dewormer, and you're crazy if you use it. I mean, that's evil, right? I mean, India solved their problem on a generic ivermectin, Nobel Peace Prize in ivermectin for $2 a pop. per person. Instead, we got to shut down our whole society and fire people over an experimental gene therapy that's above the law and has more rights than the individual. I mean, they have indemnity in the law. And I fought against that in 2019 and got called an anti-vaxxer. But look where we are now. These corporations are above reproach, and they probably fund all the mainstream media. I mean, the royal wedding brought to you by Pfizer, CBS brought to you by Pfizer. I mean, it's really a neo-feudalism when these corporations are bigger than the natural people's rights and their sovereign rights over their body and their healthcare decisions. And the word conspiracy theorists or trying to label someone is really losing its effectiveness when people see like one conspiracy belief after another get proven by lies of omission by the media with stuff they don't talk about, and then they're trying to divert you into certain cattle runs. So I couldn't agree more. Sorry, I kind of went on a tangent.
No, listen, man, I know that we share similar viewpoints on some of these things. And yeah, you know, they have been complicit in some terrible crimes, I believe, have been committed against the people of this nation. And, you know, they treat us like we're their property. They really do. And we're not their property. And, you know, just what you need to do is just ask them, am I your property? Well, of course, they're not going to say yes. And say, do I have a contract with you that relinquishes my rights as a person to you, so I become your property? No.
Sovereign, natural, God-given rights over your body and your decisions.
Sure, man. I know that's an alien concept to many. But, you know, freedom, believe me, folks, freedom is the route to take. You don't want, you know, big daddy or big mommy government taking care of you, because what they can give you, they can also take away. Okay, so Dave, we got to take a quick commercial break. Anywhere you want to send people to find out more about you or anything you got going on? You got Facebook pages or email or anything like that you got want to put on?
Yeah, facebook.com/Dunn for HD8 is my online presence right now. And you can shoot me an email at ddunn@gmail.com for a personal email. And then if I figure out you're a real human being, I'd love to talk on the phone.
You don't talk to bots, son.
I don't want it.
I don't blame you. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back on the other side here with David Dunn, and we'll talk about voter integrity, which seems to be a really, really big, hot issue here in Montana, and also the redistricting, which is a pretty recent thing. We'll be back on the other side of the break with David Dunn. I'm your host, James White, northwestlibertynews.com. That's northwestlibertynews.com. If you like classic cars, exceptional service, and a money-back guarantee, then the Corner Shop in beautiful downtown Kalispell is the place for you. Whether it's an oil change, engine diagnostic, suspension work, or brakes all around, the Corner Shop has you covered. With expert technicians and a free consultation on all services, you can't go wrong with the Corner Shop. Did I mention the classic cars? While you're waiting for your expert service to be performed, take a stroll through the showroom to see Kalispell's smoothest collection of classic cars. The Corner Shop is conveniently located at 1212 South Main, just south of the courthouse. The Corner Shop is open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m., so drop by for an appointment or call 755-7777. That's 755-7777. The Corner Shop, Kalispell's full-service auto repair facility.
7K Metals is legacy. They help you leave a legacy for your family. Reasonable and affordable. Anyone can own gold and silver. It creates great generational wealth and residual passive income. No minimum or maximum order. 7K Metals has a Better Business Bureau A+ rating. It's about leaving a legacy for your family. It's about helping people. Now is the time to find out more information about protecting yourself. Call Carla at 406-855-2761. That's 406-855-2761. Today is a great time to buy gold and silver as a hedge against poor government decisions and potential economic collapse if history repeats itself. Take control of your financial future. Call Carla at 406-855-2761. 406-855-2761. Call now, 7K Metals, and ask about your legacy.
Patriot
PatriotPrepared.com carries the leading brands of storable food from Legacy and Heaven's Harvest. Patriot Prepared. Our name says it all. We're dedicated to empowering you to be self-reliant and confident in any circumstance. Whether you want to be prepared in the event of an emergency or you're an outdoor sports enthusiast, PatriotPrepared.com has prepackaged meals and kits for your entire family. Legacy, Heaven's Harvest are known for high-quality, great-tasting, GMO-free, nutritious food with no chemical preservatives. Simple to prepare, easy to store, gluten-free and organic high-quality nutrition options with a 25-year shelf life. You can't beat the feeling of being food secure when you need it most. So go to PatriotPrepared.com right now to pick up your supply of high-quality storable food for your family, because it makes good sense to be prepared. That's PatriotPrepared.com.
Okay, folks, PatriotPrepared.com. I just read an article here earlier on Zero Hedge, and it stated that Costco has run out of storable food. I literally went onto the supplier's website right before the broadcast, and they are pretty well fully stocked with everything. So if you're running into some shortages through other methods or other places that you shop, go to PatriotPrepared.com. That's PatriotPrepared.com. We have storable food available right now. And folks, food's going to become very scarce at some point. This is not fear-mongering. You just have to look at, just look at what's going on. David mentioned it earlier. Fertilizer, for crying out loud, which if you don't have fertilizer, your crop yield is going to be way lower than it normally is. Russia has a large supply of the world's fertilizer, and they're not going to export any. If they get into an economic war with Russia, it's going to hurt us in a lot of areas, including agriculturally. So if you don't come to my website, go to somewhere else. Go to Costco, get some beans, get some rice, get something to get prepared, folks. PatriotPrepared.com. That's PatriotPrepared.com. David, sorry for going on so long about that, but it's an important thing. I mean, you being a farmer, like I said, a man of the soil, do you see that as well? I mean, you mentioned it, you brought it up earlier. Right? If the prices of fuel goes up to the point where truckers can't afford to pay for diesel anymore, or when the price of fuel goes up, the price of everything goes up, and pretty soon it gets to the point where people can't afford to run their business anymore because they're just priced out of it. I mean, are we facing potentially perilous times, David?
Yeah, and I think that's part of the plan, right? The food, when you have to pay half of your income on food alone, that's when society breaks down. That's when you saw the Arab Spring, when 50% of their paycheck went to food. And that's kind of how communists have always controlled populations in the past. And what the Great Reset crowd is basically an oligarchical class of communists, and that's how they're going to control people in the future, I believe. And it's only going to get worse. I mean, I don't want to be a doom and gloomer, but everything I look at says it's going to be harder, and harder. And when that happens, people are going to get very frustrated. And when you lose everything, I mean, people lose it. So it's going to be a very destabilizing thing for our society, the way inflation is destroying, people's ability just to get by. So I couldn't agree more. That's kind of part of the plan. And they're trying to kind of shift us into different food streams, whether it be like synthetic meats that Bill Gates is all about, and bugs. So it feels a little bit like Soylent Green is people, a little bit like Charlton Heston, like they're putting us in a negative future on purpose to control humanity. And it's a very dangerous time, I think, just to be brutally honest.
No, it is indeed. It is indeed. And, I'm not necessarily of the mindset that the people that got us into this mess are the same ones that can get us out of it. But that's the system that we're in right now. And we're in a system where we elect leaders that are supposed to represent us. Sadly, many of them have failed in a colossal manner. But That's the system we're in right now. That being said, if we have to work within that system, regardless of whether it needs to be reformed or not, we want the process of voting, which is a key part of that system, to be fair and equitable for everyone. Right now, I'm a little bit concerned with the history of the last election, and it appears to me that there was some
Yeah, there's fraud going on.
Fraud,
People are afraid to
shenanigans.
say it. People are afraid to say it, but there's fraud that goes on. And like, if you want to bully me on it, so be it. But there's definitely fraud that went on. Are you kidding me? Joe Biden, 81 million.
Oh,
for a
no, there was fraud, but
geriatric
there was a
guy?
lot of different kinds of fraud. That's what I was going to describe.
Amen.
I mean,
Yeah.
what kind of
I mean,
fraud?
what about Mark Zuckerberg?
Yeah.
And like, if you can censor the internet, that's a form of fraud. If you can throw tons of money at certain counties for voting as Mark Zuckerberg, that's fraud. If your voting system is controlled by a third party that's electronic, do you think there's possibility for fraud? You bet. Did all the swing states stay open that whole night until they found enough votes? I think so. I do. Is Trump perfect? No. Is he kind of a jerk sometimes? Yeah. But was he our jerk? Yeah. Did he make the gas price a lot lower than it's ever been? Yeah. Has Joe Biden been a sellout for 40 years? Yeah. I don't even think he's running it, to be honest. I think the people around him tell him what to do.
I don't think he is.
Just a little puppet on strings. He can't even speak. I mean, the guy makes me sick just listening to him. And then Kamala cackles in Poland. Do you see that the other day?
Yeah, no.
That's disheartening.
These aren't real. These aren't serious people.
No, she's not. And if you look at her career, she slept her way to the top. I mean, what kind of feminism is that? I mean, truthfully, like, you should be there on your merits, and that you're a good leader, and that you're like very deep in your thought process, not just the identity politics where it's like, oh, you check these boxes, you make me feel good. I mean, come on, it's just so juvenile.
Well, David, look, they're looking at, Biden has promised to nominate, but she did, a black female to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's
not
racist.
Based upon like her ability. It's just like, how can you go ahead of time before you even start the process and say, I'm going to be voting a black female in the Supreme Court? What if the applicants that you have aren't necessarily, that don't match that description, and there's other ones that are better? I mean, isn't that how things are supposed to go?
I mean, it was supposed to be a meritocracy. Now it's this new form of woke where it's like, we're going to be racist the way Hollywood and the television tells us it's the comfortable way to be racist, which is fascinating in itself that people can't recognize the hypocrisy of it all. And it's pretty scary, to be honest. Like, it's pretty dumb.
Well, we had a guest, Braxton Mitchell, on yesterday, and I asked him the same question I asked you. We just had the redrawing of the Public Service Commission maps here in Montana, and although they turned out pretty well, I guess overall you could say, from our perspective, we still had a situation where the federal judge moved into Montana politics and really made the decision, and the legislature is the one, I believe, that formed the PSC, and they have full exclusive control over them as oversight, from what I understand. But a federal judge comes in and usurps the Montana legislature. Does that concern you, David, that sets a precedent? It's a slippery slope that we may be going down. We want less federal intervention in the states, not more.
Yeah, I think it doesn't set the precedent. It just continues what's already really going on for a while now, where you can legislate from the bench, and legislators don't have the guts to impeach anyone on the bench. There's no recourse, even though that was designed in our constitutional framework of a republic for checks and balances. But it bugs me. I know the guy who brought it was Bob Brown, who's says he's a Republican and gets a lot of articles in the paper, but he's a bit of a raging Democrat that would probably fit well on the January 6th committee. So it was political. It could have been a lot worse. It turned out pretty good. And the problem is it just costs our state so much money to call a special session. And so it kind of needs to be the end goal and game, and who's going to do what needs to be planned before you get down to Helena, just so you can save the taxpayer money. And it's unwise just to have this open moment where anything flies and things could progress and take longer. And it costs the state a lot of money, which we're a pretty frugal state, and our budgets has to be balanced. So I kind of understood both sides on it, actually, even though it was like a kind of a rhino who brought the bill, and it could be changed in future sessions. So, and it was also kind of ignored by the legislature for 10 years or whatever it was before that. So, do I like federal judges deciding for the legislature what we should be deciding? No. Can it be changed in the future? Yes. Did it do a ton of damage? No, I don't think so. And I don't think the other part of that session was going to be electoral fraud. And I'm worried about it, but I'm more worried about it in different states. I think I trust our vote count, even though there's always room for improvement. I trust our voting system in our state a lot better than I do other states. And I don't think the forces that do want to steal elections are going to covet 3 electoral votes too much from our federal level for our 3 electoral votes. And that's just kind of my opinion on the matter.
A couple more questions, David. Just a couple more questions. If you do get elected to HD8, what? Pardon me. You've been through the process before. What type of legislation do you have? Anything in mind? Is there anything that's an interest of yours or a topic that that sort of is on your radar that you may think about? Introducing a bill.
Yeah. I went down to Montana GOP kickoff in Helena in January, and a guy who was a lobbyist I knew in 2019, almost got appointed. Well, I think he is part of the executive policy team that works with Gianforte. He kind of moved up to that. And what we were discussing was tax credits because we're sitting good on income tax here. We have almost too much revenue in the income tax side that always just funds our state government. But our property taxes in this county and around the state are just really pricing people out of their own homes when they're cash poor and land rich. So we're going to try to bring a bill for tax credits to supplement to lower your property tax if you're already paying income tax, and just try to alleviate some of the pain that people are feeling on a property tax level. Because I think there's a lot of improvement that could be made there on a county level that the legislature really can't address. It's got to be gone through by our county commissioners on that level to make our property taxes lower on the majority side of things. But for instance, on our rights, I encouraged the gal to run in 2019 who became my favorite legislator and an absolute rock star down there. Representative Jennifer Carlson brought that bill, which was at its time, when we're in the full-blown panic of Corona, revolutionary for a state to say, hey, don't discriminate your own employees on the gene therapy we're calling a vaccine right now. You should have natural God-given rights over your own bodily autonomy and decisions. And so in that realm of things, I'm always kind of on the bleeding edge of conservative policy, where I want to reserve the rights of the individual against the majority and preserve our natural God-given rights in a time where everyone wants to panic and have a knee-jerk reaction and henpeck and control others. I think the beauty of our system of government was the protecting of the individual against the majority in a republic, and protecting your God-given rights that are inalienable. They're enumerated in our Constitution, but they're self-evident, and God gave them to you, and they're gleaned from the pages of the Bible. So it was a pretty special form of government. You saw that one guy on The View last week say, the Constitution's kind of trash. Let's talk like adults. Okay, first of all, adults don't use the word trash in the petty way. And the Constitution is one of the most beautiful documents of self-governance that's ever been instituted amongst man.
And the Declaration of Independence and Bill of Rights. Let's not forget about those.
Those things are poetry when you read them now. What are we talking about, The View? It's just, that's kind of the insane level the neo-Marxist left side has gone to, where they want to destroy the foundations of our republic, which is getting to a scary level.
So the final question for you, David, before we end the interview. As people go into the ballot box here, and they go into the voter booth, I should say, here in June, why should they vote for David Dunn over any of your opponents?
I've already been down there. My opponents haven't. I know I'm on good terms with the governor, who I helped get elected. I mean, I didn't do much, but I did help. And then I'm on good terms with our attorney general, so I can be a good advocate for if you run into problems with your state government. I have a good rapport with people that are in the leadership down there. I also know the process, and it's like a 4-month sprint almost, and you need to know what to do. And the first half is when you can introduce policy bills. So it's you need to be prepared and know what you're doing before you even get there. So I know the process. I have a good relationship with the Republican Party. I'm ready to do the job more so than the other folks in the primary. And there's some moderates and some conservatives who I wouldn't mind who won it too, but I think I'm the best candidate. Whether that translates to me winning, I'm not sure. I'll just kind of leave it in God's hands and do my part and work for it. But I'm kind of the guy in the room that can advocate for conservative policy, and I'm going to take a new approach where I don't try to, call people out or bully them. I'm going to try to work with moderate forces, because it works for Representative Carlson in the end when she just asked politely to get her bill across the floor. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I think that's why I'm a better candidate for HD8 than the others. But we'll see. We'll find out.
Ladies and gentlemen, David Dunn, candidate for Montana House District 8. And if you are in House District 8, keep an eye out, because David will probably be at your door knocking on it at some point here in the next couple of months, I'm sure. David, we do appreciate you being here on the broadcast. Thanks so much for coming into the studio and taking advantage of the new facilities here. What do you think about it? Think it's pretty decent?
You upped your level, man. I'm feeling kind of like a pro over here. I'm in Kalispell. I'm in Helena. You got the good lighting. I feel comfortable. Whatever you're doing, it's working.
Good stuff, man. I appreciate it. All right, folks.
Appreciate you, bro.
We're just out of time. I'm James White, the host here from Northwest Liberty News. You can check out what I got going on at northwestlibertynews.com. That's northwestlibertynews.com. And if you haven't seen the article I just published yesterday about baby Cyrus getting kidnapped there in Idaho, you might want to check that out. It's a tragic story. Appreciate you looking in today, folks. We'll be back next time. And until then, this is James White for Northwest Liberty News saying bye now. See you, David. Thanks, man.